David, how are you today?
James, I'm doing wonderful, thank you.
Let me just start with a comment here. I can really appreciate that clip in so much as well-trained militia. I don't have a problem with that. I do it on a paintball basis, so I would probably be armed a little different, but it's a lot of fun if you treat it like a game, or it can be more professional if you treat it like a militia. But that line is in there where if you cross it, you take it from there.
Well, of course, part of the function of the constitutional militia is to also assist in putting down insurrection. Everybody likes to talk about only the insurrectionary theory behind the Second Amendment, but what we're really seeing here is we're seeing these people who, and time will tell how low-hanging of fruits they really turn out to be. We see the indictments. We know that they are innocent until proven guilty. It will come out, what exactly it was that these people were doing, how much truth there is to the charges. We know that there was an informant that was a plant in there from the Wall Street Journal for quite some time. And we've seen before where people have been set up. And so I'm not sure how much of this represents a real and present and consistent danger that we need to be discouraged about, as opposed to, this was an opportunity for the government to take out some dangerous characters and do it with a tremendous amount of media fanfare. And that, to me, is not to use the word discourage, I think, that we opened this segment with, but we definitely need to be on our guard about this, because we're seeing the conflation experts come out in force. And we're seeing they are using this now to tar people like you and me with that brush. Heck, James, I've gotten emails and communications where I've been called a thug and a terrorist, and where I've been wished to be imprisoned by the FBI and or killed. Just lunatic stuff coming from the other side, and that goes with the territory. You kind of take it. But then I see even people who, like, there's a former Giuliani speechwriter who writes on a website called the Daily Beast, and he's charging groups like Oath Keepers, which are current and retired law enforcement and military and firefighters and people like that, who essentially have taken their oath to the Constitution very seriously, and he has tarred them with the brush of being, quote-unquote, patriots. What we see happening is we see two time-honored words that the founders recognized and revered. One word is patriot, the other word is militia, and we see this being used by people who do not believe in the founders' vision of the Constitution, as now they have become pejoratives. I'd like to read you a brief quote, if I may. This is attributed to historian Charles Austin Beard, and he said, "You need only reflect that one of the best ways to get yourself a reputation as a dangerous citizen these days is to go about repeating the very phrases which our founding fathers used in the struggle for independence." And that brings up nothing so much to my mind as George Orwell in 1984 with his Newspeak. And then again, a quote from that: "The words are not merely changed into something different, but actually contradictory of what they used to be." So that we see incidents like this being exploited to tar the very idea of the constitutional militia, which, what is the militia? George Mason asked that. Who are the militia? They consist now of the whole people, except for a few public officers. And to my mind, the framers knew what they were talking about and knew what they were doing when they said that a well-regulated militia is necessary to the security of a free state. That means you and I and our neighbors in times of dire emergency are going to be responsible for protecting ourselves and protecting our communities, because we know that by farming it out to the so-called professionals, that there's simply not enough of them to be up to the task, nor do we want to make it powerful enough to where the government has so much control over our daily lives that they are such a monopoly of force that God forbid things would ever devolve to the point where a tyranny did make itself, with an iron grip on this country, that we would not be able to do anything about it but comply and obey. And I think that, James, we've seen it play out in the Los Angeles riots, where the civil authorities ceded entire sections of the city for days on end, and you could see the looters and rioters stop when they saw the Korean shopkeepers up on their roofs with their rifles. That was a citizen militia acting properly, not initiating force, but protecting and defending in the absence of order until such time as order could be restored. We saw it again in Hurricane Katrina, where again, just simply the scope of things overwhelmed civil authority, and there simply were not enough people there to handle the task that was before them. And I submit to you, the founders, when they designed a well-regulated militia as being necessary to the security of a free state, meant that you and I and our neighbors forget the differences. We don't have to be a group like these Hutaree. I'd never heard of them before this incident, and I went and I checked out their website, and I see little forum things that you couldn't get into because you had to be a member with names like Evil Jew. And I mean, come on.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be Americans. This is supposed to be the land of liberty and opportunity for all. And who are the militia? It is us. It is us regardless of race, regardless of creed, regardless of anything else. It is the citizens coming together in time of need to do what we can to protect ourselves and to protect the Republic, and if necessary, ultimately to restore constitutional order. Simple as that.
Yep, and I thoroughly agree with you. My compliments go out to the FBI. They did a wonderful job there. To this point, that's as far as we know anyway. Certainly they stopped it before anything took place. I understand from the plans that they had some very detailed plans about shooting officers and showing up at funerals and then shooting more officers and using explosives. I assume that was probably taken in either written documents or firsthand from the undercover people with the FBI. It's a very scary situation. These are Americans. We don't have time to go into this, but I know that there's also a group here from Pakistan, and they're working out there somewhere. This is what you would expect probably from someone outside the country. And the reason why I started it off as being America's worst nightmare is basically because it's Americans that, and this is an isolated situation. Unfortunately, it probably smears some of the really well-organized militia that you and I have just discussed, and it makes everybody tense about camo uniforms. I mean, it's one of those things that, like I said, thank God the FBI got on it. I know we'll hear more about it, and I'm sure that you'll report more on it in the coming days.
Yeah, and again, we will find out, the facts will come out. But again, we see the people who are against the Second Amendment using this as an opportunity. A colleague, Kurt Hoffman, the St. Louis gun rights examiner, wrote about how the Illinois Council Against Handgun Violence is using this to renew calls for a quote-unquote assault weapons ban and a ban on 50 cals. And of course, they were planning on doing their major damage with pipe bombs, which Kurt points out, explosives are already highly controlled, so why are you conflating the two? And you know what, James? It's just basically a matter of they may try to tar us with this, but I'm going to do what I can not to let them and take the offensive and don't put up with it. And when you hear them calling people like you and me racist, or when you hear them calling people like you and me thugs and extremists, don't stand for it. And we're going to continue to speak from our hearts and to speak the truth and to reference the Constitution as the source for what it is. We are trying to obey the supreme law of the land. And when you put it in those terms, people can't paint you as being lawless.
Right. Right, absolutely. And I know there's more to this story, and as it develops, David, please keep us informed on it. I know that we're all watching it.